One of the many beauties about Pokemon games is you can play them however you want to. You want to go through the whole game with just a single Pokemon? Sure, why not? You want to only use Pokemon Ash caught in the anime? Go right ahead. There's no right or wrong way to play Pokemon, but today we'll be playing Pokemon Emerald version how I intended it, which might be a little different than what some of you guys are used to. Starting off, I name ourselves Land. You might be confused by this since I usually just name ourselves Sea, but it'll all make sense soon enough. And if you guys want to be part of this run while it's happening, check out my Twitch channel link in the description where I stream most of my runs live, and maybe you can also nickname a Pokemon or two. While you're down there, also consider leaving a like and subscribing for more Pokemon videos. After changing my frame to the pipe frame and setting our clock, we go help Professor Birch and pick Mudkip as our starter Pokemon. You may be wondering why I picked Mudkip, and that's because we will only be using ground type Pokemon in this playthrough, and Mudkip is the only starter Pokemon that evolves into a ground type, at least as far as I know. You might still be wondering why, and to answer that question, I just wanted to use ground types. To make things a little bit spicier, if Pokemon faints, we also can't use it in battle again, and we can't use any items in battle, so pretty much this will be a hardcore Nuzlocke. There's only a total of 9 ground-type Pokemon we can use in Emerald version, including Nincada, which people always forget is a ground-type because, I mean, look at it. So we have to be pretty careful, especially when you consider the fact that ground is weak to water, and the Hoenn region is, you already know the joke I'm gonna make, it's all water. That would also explain why we name ourselves Land, because we're only using ground types, and ground types must also be your mom's favorite Pokemon because she really does dig me. Sorry, I had to. Wouldn't be one of my videos if I didn't force a your mom joke in there, but not much else happens until we get to Rustboro City. Here is where we strike gold. Like the cowboys who rushed to California in the 1800s for gold, and definitely didn't commit atrocious crimes along the way. We find our very first ground-type Pokemon to back up our Mudkip in Nincada. Not a very glamorous Pokemon, but chat has us name it Wincada, which is just perfect because it'll lead us to the win. Maybe not in the first fight against Roxanne, since Mudkip can handle her rock-type Pokemon quite nicely, then evolve into Marshtomp after the fight, and finally be a ground-type. Sure, Mudkip technically isn't a ground-type, and I know at least one person's probably typing away at that in the comments already, but check the title of the video as well as just about any other video I make, because we do whatever we want around here. After chasing down some ne'er-do-well who stole something from this guy at the Devon Corporation and this Wingle or something, we get to take a boat ride with this old man to take us to Dewford Town. Or Dewford City. I always forget. Is it city? Is it town? Can I look it up? Yes. Am I? No. Our first stop here is Granite Cave, which has our next ground type encounter in Geodude. Chat decided to name it Gregory for some reason, and I don't know why, but Gregory became chat's favorite Pokemon, with people constantly asking about him and asking me to use him in battle. We don't use him much right now since Brawly's gym is a fighting type gym and Gregory would not fare well against fighting type Pokemon, but Gregory will have his time to shine soon enough. Against Brawly's fighting-type foes, we lead with Shrek the Marshtomp and his Machop. We Mudshot it, which lowers speed, take a Karate Chomp, then knock out with the second Mudshot. Then he goes into Meditite, which has some weird AI, as it almost always tries to go for Focus Punch, which needs one turn to focus, and then the next turn to go for a very strong attack. Luckily for us, Meditite just goes for Bulk Up as we miss Mudshot, but we land the second one for her 2-hit KO. Just kidding, it lives with 1 HP. I really hate damage rolls sometimes, but Brawly heals as we knock out Meditite without taking any more damage. If Meditite went for Focus Punch on the first turn, there's a good chance our Marshtomp would be dead. Last up is Makuhita, which is deceptively strong and bulky for a, like, what even is Makuhita? A sack of potatoes? A punching bag? I don't really know, but either way, Mudshot is about a 3-hit KO on it, but Vital Throw does a ton. Marshtomp goes down to a second hit from Makuhita, so we invoke our patented, I can't say that word, patented, you know what I'm trying to say, our patented didn't count clause and just reset. If we don't miss Mudshots and keep good damage rolls so we can keep our berry, we can handle Makuhita no problem. Then, on the third attempt, we get optimal RNG and have full health on Makuhita, but then go down to a crit, so we reset again and this time get even better RNG and a water gun critical hit to do massive damage. Marshtomp is really weak though, so we go to Nincada, of all things, which surprisingly takes a hit from Makuhita, and then gets a crit with Cut later on to seal the deal to get our victory against Brawly on our first try. I really didn't think Nincada would help out here, but it certainly earned the name Wincada after saving the run right there. There's a whole lot of nothing coming up next with Team Aqua in Slateport City, and then we have our rival, Brendan. Typically our rival is May, but since we're playing as May this time around, we fight Brendan. To be honest, the only reason I picked May is because the very few times I ever picked the girl character in the video, some people get mad in the comments section for some reason, and I just think it's funny, but those people who get mad probably clicked off the video a while ago now, so who even cares? I also made a bit of an oopsie and looked up the rivals team in Ruby and Sapphire version, not Emerald version, which is a bit different. In Emerald version, they lead with a Slugma, which is just fine for Marshtomp. He then goes to Grovyle after that to hit us with a 4x super effective grass type move, so we go into Wincata, which is neutral to absorb. We get hit with a critical hit pursuit and then just spam sand attacks and leech life to somehow beat Grovyle with Nincada. I still don't understand how Nincada keeps saving us. Then on Wingull we go back to Marshtomp and just spam tackles to defeat our rival. After that I hook up my second Game Boy Advance and trade over Gregory, who just evolved into Graveler, so we can get a Golem and really start to use Gregory a lot more now. Next, we have Watson. He's an Electric-type gym leader. We are a Ground-type user and our name is Land, so we make Watson go, "What, son?" when he sees our full Ground-type team and defeat him in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. I did use Gregory in this fight though, which definitely wasn't optimal because he does have a few Steel-type moves. Granted, we aren't exactly known for going for the most optimal strategies in my playthroughs, but Gregory still got the job done, so good job, Gregory. You're chat's favorite for a reason. Numel. We found a Numel up north on Route 111. Another ground type that is not weak to grass type, but it is 4 times weak to water, just like Gregory, and water is rather abundant here. We name it Krakatoa, which is kind of a basic name, and I'm not the biggest fan of basic nicknames for my Pokemon, but it's also a SpongeBob reference, and I can never turn down a good SpongeBob reference. Next up we have Maxie in Mount Chimney, and luckily it isn't Archie. Archie's water-type Pokemon will be a huge problem, but Marshtomp is able to get through Maxie pretty easily, leading us to Laveridge Town to fight Flannery and her Fire-type Pokemon. This should be another easy win for us, and you might be thinking, wow, this whole game is pretty easy when you only use ground-type Pokemon, but trust me, the second half of this game gets a lot more crazier. Or gets a lot crazier. I don't think a lot more crazier is proper English, but who cares about being proper? For Flannery, we lead with Marshtomp, as usual, as she leads with Numel. As tempting as I was to have an honor battle with our Numel here, I really don't want to lose it just after getting it. Water Gun one-shots her Numel, then on Slugma we Mudshot it for another one-hit KO. Fourth up is Camera, which is 4 times weak to Water Gun, but still takes 1 and sets up the Sunny Day. A second Water Gun is enough to knock out Camera Ups from this range, but now we have her Torkoal, which has the Sun Up, which can be a bit scary. Mudshot looks to be about a 3-hit KO as it goes for a track, as if our super cool Marshtomp would ever fall in love with this weird turtle thing. But I don't want to chance it, so I send out Gregory. We tank a Body Slam, but get paralyzed of course, as the sun fades. She Body Slams us again, but we get a Magnitude 7, which is enough to knock out the turtle and give us our 4th gym badge. This finally opens up the desert near Route 111, which has a couple of ground types. The first one we encounter is Trapinch, which is probably the best one, and naturally, we name it Salamence. There is also this tower here, which is technically a different location from the route, so we can go in there and get another encounter, which happens to be a Sandshrew. We technically caught it on the same route as we caught Trapinch, since I couldn't find the tower, but screw it, the only things we could have got in the tower was a Sandshrew anyway, so I don't think it makes much of a difference. While grinding up for the fight against Norman, Sandshrew, which we named Tower after the tower, evolves into Sandslash. This gym should be quite difficult because he has 2 Slackings, which sure can only attack every other turn, but they're still very strong and quite fast for an actual fat sloth. Like, if you looked at this Pokemon with how fat it was and how it's laying down, you probably wouldn't guess that it has 100 speed, would you? I decided to backtrack a bit here and get a few other items like the Toxic TM, which might be useful for the gym, but we still struggle to form a solid plan for Norman. After a couple of more didn't count clauses, we realized that leading with Gregory on Norman Spinda is our best option. Spinda has no fighting type moves but can confuse us, while 2 decent magnitude numbers can knock it out. Then, on the first Slacking, go right into Wincata. This matchup definitely isn't fair for Wincata, but we need to try our best, and Wincata has got us out of tougher situations. We take a feint attack and activate our Oranberry, then get Toxic off on the following turn. I decide to go for Mud Slap next to lower Slacking's accuracy, but we're too slow and Wincata goes down to a Facade. That's our first loss of the run, but we won't let it be in vain since the toxic damage will be huge. Next I go into Sandslash to go for Dig to try to make it so we're underground during the turns it attacks and hits it on the loafing around turns, but I mistime it somehow because I just wasn't paying attention, I guess. Norman then uses a potion as we finally get the right timing on Dig and slowly take out Slacking. On Vigoroth we have to switch since we were yawned to sleep and go back into Gregory. Vigoroth can barely hit Gregory, allowing him to just hammer away with Magnitude. Then on our last Pokemon Linoon we just do the same thing for our 5th gym badge. As we lay our sweet Wincata to rest, we prepare to go up north to Fortree City, but first have another rival fight. I, again, accidentally look at the rival's team for Ruby and Sapphire instead of Emerald, but he just leads with Slugma as we lead Gregory in the rain. I go for Sandstorm to get rid of the rain, so later on Overheat from Numel will do more damage to his Grovyle. But Gregory barely misses the KO on Slugma, but since we have the Sandstorm up, that's enough to finish off Slugma. On Grovyle, we go to Numel and risk taking a critical hit Leaf Blade to KO with Overheat. Then on Pelipper, I just go to Marshtomp and whittle away at it with Surf for the win. Now in Fortree City, things start to really look up for us. Well, not really since the game gets way harder now, but at least we can fish for a Barboach named Bocher, I hardly know her, and immediately evolve to Whiscash. Having a second ground and water type is great to help out against other water type moves, but we still need to watch out for grass type Pokemon and grass type moves in general, which the next two gym leaders have, and we happen to have 3 Pokemon on our team that are 4 times weak to grass. First we have to get through Winona though, who just leads with a pathetic Swablu that Marshtomp can take out with 2 Ice Beams. I should probably also mention we got a ton of TMs like Ice Beam from the game corner after winning big in the casino. I was surprised to see that the Swablu lived an Ice Beam though, and went for Perish Song, which isn't too bad, it just means we have to switch out in a couple of turns. Or we die. She wastes a potion as we knock out Swablu after 2 more Ice Beams. In comes Tropius, which, funny enough, is probably the scariest Pokemon on her team for us, even though it's considered one of the most forgettable Pokemon ever. We go to Camerupt to see Solar Beams, and I expected a sunny day, so instead of going for Flamethrower like I planned, I just go for Overheat to ensure the one-hit KO on Tropius. When our Pelipper comes in, we need to switch into Marshtomp to eat Water Guns. Don't know why the 6th gym leader still has Water Guns on her team, but sure. I go for Ice Beam and get a Lucky Freeze, which allows Marshtomp to take less damage in the fight and take out Pelipper. For her Skarmory, we just stay in and go for Surf since we have a lot of HP remaining and 2-shot Skarmory. This works out better than going to Camerupt, then switching back to Marshtomp. Since Marshtomp is still able to eat an Earthquake from her ace Pokemon Altaria, then we unfortunately miss an Ice Beam from a Sand attack that happened earlier in the battle. I just play risky again and click Ice Beam again, as we drop to only 8 HP from Earthquake and narrowly miss the KO, but get bailed out by another Freeze. At this point, we played risky enough, so I just play it safe and go into Bocher to finish off Winona's Altaria and get our 6th gym badge with quite a bit of luck. Next up, we have Hayden Liza. Double battles are always scary, especially when you consider the fact that if one of our Pokemon faints, we can't use them again. On paper, you might think that Ground-type Pokemon have a decent matchup against Hayden Liza, but their 2 Rock-type Pokemon have Levitate and are immune to Ground-type moves, and her other 2 Pokemon are also just immune to Ground. My first idea was to just lead off with Swampert and Bocher and spam Surfs, which should be fine. However, their Claydol has Sunny Day, and Solrock has Solar Beam, which is pretty good against a team of only Ground-type Pokemon. I end up deciding on just leading with Swampert and Vibrava, so Swampert can go for Surf, Vibrava can be immune to Claydol's Earthquakes, and also hit them with Crunch for super effective damage. It also means that when Solrock comes in, we don't have to guess on which Pokemon it's going for Solar Beam on, since Vibrava should take a hit, although Vibrava can't take a +1 Psychic from Xatu without falling. I end up trying this battle for nearly an hour, invoking more didn't count clauses than I can count, until we finally figure out a strategy that I think can work. I leave with Swampert and Gregory and go for Ice Beam on the Claydol and Rock Blast on Xatu to take it out early. Ice Beam does over half to Claydol as Xatu goes down, then in comes Solrock. I switch Gregory out for Vibrava on Earthquake as Solrock charges up Solar Beam and Swampert Ice Beams Claydol for a second time to knock it out. I send out Lunatone next, and since we know that Solar Beam is coming, we have to swap Swampert out for Camerupt as it's the only other thing on our team not weak to Grass that can take a Solar Beam. Crunch does decent damage to Solrock from Vibrava, then the Lunatone goes for Light Screen as Camerupt tanks a Solar Beam. I just overheat the Solrock for max damage since the sun was still up. This lets us take out the Solrock, and now all that's left is Lunatone. It's setting up Calm Minds and has the Light Screen up, so we do rather minimal damage as Vibrava falls to a crit Psychic. As much as I would love to have a Flygon in this run, I don't think it was meant to be. Luckily, Camerupt burns the Lunatone and we go into Bocher. Surf does so little damage now, and there isn't much we can do or switch into, so we have to let Camerupt fall as well. In hindsight, maybe letting Sandslash die was the better play, or maybe we could have just played better from the start to save both Pokemon.
Nice throw!
But at least we can safely go to Swampert, live with like 1 HP, and thanks to the residual burn damage, finally take out Lunatone for our 7th gym badge at the cost of 2 of our coolest Pokemon. Not ideal, but at least we made it through. Next up, we have some more evil team stuff, and aside from Steven's AI being terrible in the battle where we team up with him against Team Magma, things go rather smoothly here. The evil teams really weren't much of an issue for us in this game at all. We can at least pick up a Phanpy that we got in the Safari Zone earlier on and evolve to Donphan to bring us back to 5 Pokemon. Then, for our last encounter of the run to bring us to a full party, we go to the Sky Pillar and get a Claydol named Beyblade. Kind of fitting how we get a Claydol shortly after we battled one that caused a lot of trouble for us. All that leaves now is one more gym leader, Juan, and his water type gym. This looks to be like one of the hardest gyms in the game and all, but he leads with a Love Disc, which isn't too scary. We lead Whiscash as we get confused by Love Disc and hit ourselves 2 times in a row. Didn't count claws, so we go again. My strategy is just to spam Amnesia to boost our special defense as much as we can, and then have Rest with the Chesterberry to heal off any damage if needed. If we don't get confused and hurt ourselves too many times, we should be okay. We end up taking out the Love Disc, winning the Whiscash Honor Battle, 2-shotting Celio with Earthquake, and 2-shotting Crawdaunt as well, then make it all the way to his ace Pokemon Kingdra, which has Double Team. This is very annoying, especially since we're low on PP. We go back and forth for a while, shovel around some Pokemon, run out of PP so do one more Didn't Count Claws, get right back to the Kingdra, and finally knock out Kingdra for our last gym match with surprisingly 0 casualties against the Water-type gym leader. Now all that we have to do is surf on over to Evergrande City and go into the Victory Road to fight Wally. I forgot that Wally fights you at the start of Victory Road in this game and not at the very end like in Ruby and Sapphire, so it was a bit of a surprise battling him now. Wally leads with Altaria, which is fine since we had Swampert in front to hit it with an Ice Beam. Next comes Roselia, which is kinda scary, but we don't have an easy switch in for a Grass-type Pokemon. If it outspeeds us, we could just lose the run right here, but I figure we have 6 levels on it, so I just stay in and outspeed and KO with Ice Beam. On Delcat, we go for Surf with one-shots it, and on Magneton it goes down to Mudshot. All that leaves now is his ace Pokemon Gardevoir, which doesn't have a Grass-type move, so we just stay in. He goes for Future Sight as Surf is enough to 2-shot it, making Wally a lot less scary than anticipated. Now for the Elite Four. No more Didn't Count clauses, so we need to be a lot more careful. Sydney has 2 Grass-type Pokemon on his team, which really scared me at first, but before we see them we have to get through Mightyena. It has Intimidate, so Swampert's attack is lowered, but Brick Break still does good damage to it. We take a Sand Attack and then KO on the following turn with Brick Break. On Cacturn, I really don't want to miss a hit after taking that Sand Attack, but Cacturn is a Grass-type Pokemon and we have no safe switch in. I just go for Ice Beam, connect, and thankfully knock out Cacturn in one hit. For Shiftry, it outspeeds us, but goes for Double Team. We then miss an Ice Beam, and my heart sinks thinking Swampert's gonna die to a Grass-type move on the following turn. Then he Double Teams again, and we miss again. Then I think for sure we're gonna die, so I just click Brick Break to try to save PP in case we live somehow, as Shiftry goes for Torment. Turns out this was actually the perfect play, since Torment prevents you from going for the same move twice in a row, and had we clicked Ice Beam there, I think we would have just failed. We miss anyway, but Shiftry goes for Extra Sensory, and we take a Swagger. We have a Person Berry to heal the confusion, so after landing the next Brick Break, we go to +1 attack and just sweep the rest of his team. I was kinda surprised that Shiftry didn't go for a Grass-type move, but it turns out his Shiftry doesn't have a Grass-type move in Emerald version. Would have been nice if I noticed that before the battle started. Next up is Phoebe and her team of dastardly ghouls. She leads with Dusclops as we lead with Gregory since he can take Ghost-type hits best on the team as Ghost-type moves are all physical in this generation. She protects, then double protects, and weighs a total of 6 of our Earthquakes since she has pressure. We then get confused and hit ourselves in confusion. Dusclops Shadow Punches as we land a Rock Blast to knock out the first Dusclops. Then, in comes another Dusclops. Gotta love the diversity here. This time I set up Sandstorm and I don't really know why as she goes for Ice Beam that does solid damage. I risk staying in and just Earthquake so Dusclops goes down pretty low, but after a second Ice Beam we have to switch out. Just kidding, I risk it all again and stay in as she heals from a berry, and we knock out with Earthquake. Now on Banette, we really have to switch, so I go to Donphan. We take more damage than I would like, but still knock out Banette with Earthquakes. On Sableye, I stay in and just Earthquake again to knock down Sableye real low as she Nightshades us. We Earthquake again as she heals, and then she heals again as we Earthquake again, so we Earthquake one more time to take out Sableye. Next up is another Banette, so I go into Whiscash and take it out with a critical hit from Surf. So far so good, but next up is Glacia, the Ice-type specialist who has a few Water-type Pokemon on her team as well, which isn't exactly ideal for a team full of Ground-type Pokemon. For this fight, I decide to lead with Swampert on her Celio. I go for Brick Break with Swampert and barely miss the knockout as she sets up the Hail. She uses a full Restore and barely lives another Brick Break again. If we had like 2 more attack EVs, we probably would have gotten the KO here. We take it out on the following turn as she sends out Glalie. Glalie doesn't have the greatest defense and sets up a Light Screen. We Brick Break to get rid of Light Screen, and Glalie also barely lives a hit. We take an Ice Beam next turn and knock out with another Brick Break. Aside from a couple of missed KOs, things are going by better than expected, but it would have been a really nice if we got those one-hit KOs. On Celio number 2, it also barely lives a Brick Break and sets up Hail again. Next turn we take it out, we have a lot less HP than I would like when her second Glalie comes in. I risk it again and just stay in, as this Madlass goes for Explosion, taking down Swampert with the Glalie. Definitely not an ideal situation, but we still have 5 Pokemon left and only about 2¼ trainers left. For Glacier's Ace Walrein, we go into Bocher, and I just go for Fissure since Earthquake is a 3-hit KO anyway, at best, and we can't take 3 hits from Walrein ourselves. The first Surf from Walrein does nearly half, and we miss Fissure and take Hail damage. She then Ice Beams us, and we miss another Fissure as the Hail stops. If we stay and we die, so I just go into Beyblade the Claydol since it's our most expendable Pokemon. We tank a Surf, go for Explosion, and again, narrowly miss out on the KO. If that knocked out, I think we would have had a shot against Drake, but oh well. I send out Sandslash next since after Walrein ate the berry, Slash should knock it out, but Glacia had other plans. She outspeeds us, goes for Ice Beam, we barely live, but we get frozen. From here, the rest of our team just slowly goes down one by one, and it just wasn't meant to be. Maybe if we didn't lose some of those Pokemon earlier on back against Hayden Liza, or if we landed one of our first Fissures, we'd be in a better spot, but we did the best we can. Or maybe if Swampert had Damp. I know it doesn't get Damp in this generation, but it would be really funny if it went for Explosion and we were just immune to it. We still had a lot of fun in this run and made for what I hope was a fun video and a fun set of streams for you guys to watch. And again, if you want to see the streams live, follow my Twitch channel, link in the description, and also check out the Papasea Extra YouTube channel where the highlights for the streams will go up. I really enjoy doing these random dumb playthroughs and plan on doing a lot more in the future, and if you want to see some other runs that I've done like this, check out my recent run on Pokemon Platinum where I only used normal type Pokemon. With all that out of the way, thank you so much for watching, leave a like if you enjoyed, have a great rest of your day, and bye bye.